I was enjoying my usual Saturday morning breakfast when my daughter Sarah walked in with an envelope and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I have a surprise for you, Dad," she said sweetly. Her husband Jake stood behind her, arms crossed. She handed me the envelope. Inside was a loan document showing $700,000 in debt. Jake's name was on it. "This needs to be paid by Monday," Jake stated flatly. When I said no, Sarah threw her hot coffee at my face while Jake shouted, "Get out!" The coffee hit my face like liquid fire. I stumbled backward, my hands instinctively going to protect my eyes, as the scalding liquid ran down my cheeks and neck. Through the burning pain, I heard Sarah screaming something about how I was selfish, how I had millions hidden away while she and Jake struggled. Her words cut deeper than the physical pain as I grabbed my jacket and car keys, desperate to escape the house that had once been filled with love and laughter. My vision blurred from tears and coffee. I somehow managed to drive 3 blocks to the nearest pharmacy. The young cashier, a kid who couldn't have been older than 19, took one look at my red, blistering face and immediately directed me to the burn care aisle. I grabbed the strongest cooling gel I could find and paid quickly, avoiding the concerned stares of other customers. Back in my car, I sat in the parking lot carefully applying the burn cream. My hands shook as I tried to process what had just happened. Sarah, my little girl who used to climb into my lap for bedtime stories, had just attacked me. The same child I'd raised alone after cancer took my Helen 15 years ago. The daughter I'd sacrificed everything for, working double shifts at the prosecutor's office to pay for her college education. My phone buzzed. A text from my bank appeared on the screen. "Large withdrawal attempt blocked from your savings account. Please contact us immediately." My blood ran cold. The burning on my face suddenly seemed insignificant. I dialed the bank's fraud department with trembling fingers. "First National Bank Fraud Prevention. This is Ted Morrison speaking." I recognized the voice immediately. Ted and I had worked together years ago when I was a federal prosecutor. He'd been our key witness in a major embezzlement case. "Ted, it's Brandt Williams. I just got an alert about my account." "Brandt, I was hoping you'd call quickly. Someone tried to transfer $500,000 from your savings about 20 minutes ago. We blocked it, but they had your routing numbers and even attempted to answer your security questions." 20 minutes ago. That was right when Sarah was throwing coffee in my face. "Can you tell where the attempt came from?" There was a pause on the other end. "That's why I'm particularly concerned, Brandt. The IP address traces back to a residential location. Let me check. It's coming from 4712 Maple Street." My heart sank. That was Sarah's address. "Ted, I need to ask you something in confidence. Has anyone from that address tried this before?" The silence stretched longer this time. "I shouldn't say this, but given our history, this is the 3rd attempt from that IP address in the past 6 months. The previous 2 were for smaller amounts, testing the waters, I'd guess. We flagged the address after the 2nd attempt. Why wasn't I notified? The attempts were made using credentials that passed initial verification. It was only our unusual activity algorithm that caught them. Brandt, I've seen this pattern before. This looks like someone with inside knowledge of your accounts." I thought about all the times Sarah had helped me with my computer, insisting I was too old to understand modern banking. How many times had she watched me log in? How many passwords had she helped me create? "There's something else," Ted continued. "In my 23 years in fraud prevention, I've seen Jake Morrison's name come up in 3 separate investigations involving elderly parents. Each time charges were dropped when families settled privately. I'm not supposed to share that, but—" "Jake Morrison," I interrupted. "You mean Jake Patterson, my son-in-law?" "No, definitely Morrison. Hold on." I heard typing. "Jacob Morrison also goes by Jake Patterson, Jake Morris, and Jacob Patman. Same social security number on all accounts. Brandt, your son-in-law, is using an alias." The burn cream wasn't helping the fire on my face, but the ice forming in my chest was worse. This wasn't a desperate plea for help. This was a calculated attack. "Ted, I need you to lock down all my accounts, everything. Already done. But Brandt, if they're getting bold enough to try $500,000 in broad daylight, they're desperate. Be careful. I ended the call and sat in the pharmacy parking lot, watching normal people go about their Saturday morning routines. A young father carried his daughter on his shoulders, her laughter bright in the morning sun. Had I ever truly known my own daughter? My phone buzzed again. This time it was my neighbor Bill Thompson. The text was simple. Saw Jake speeding toward your house. He used a key. Want me to check? They had a key to my house. Of course they did. I'd given Sarah one years ago, insisting she have it for emergencies. The irony wasn't lost on me. I texted back, don't confront them. Just watch. As I sat there plotting my next move, I realized something that changed everything. Jake's debt document had been dated 3 weeks ago. They'd been sitting on this for 3 weeks, planning the perfect ambush. The Saturday morning breakfast wasn't random. They knew I'd be relaxed off guard. But they'd made one critical error. They'd assumed that Brandt Williams, retired federal prosecutor, would crumble at the first sign of family conflict. They'd mistaken my love for weakness, my age for vulnerability. A BMW speeding past the pharmacy caught my attention. Jake's car heading from the direction of my house. In the passenger seat, I glimpsed what looked like my home safe. I didn't chase them. Instead, I made a phone call that would begin their downfall. Diana Walsh Investigations. Diana, it's Brandt Williams. Remember when I kept your son out of federal prison? Brandt. How could I forget you saved Tommy's life? What do you need? I need you to save mine. How fast can you start surveillance on 2 subjects? For you, I'm already in my car. Give me the details. As I provided Diana with Jake and Sarah's information, I felt something shift inside me. The grieving father was being replaced by the prosecutor I'd once been. They wanted to play games with an old man. They were about to learn why I'd had a 96% conviction rate. The coffee burns would heal. The wounds Sarah had inflicted on my heart might never fully mend. But justice was something I knew how to serve cold. Instead of racing after Jake and Sarah, like they probably expected, I drove to a small diner on the opposite side of town. The Sunrise Cafe was the kind of place where nobody asked questions, and the coffee was strong enough to strip paint. I needed to think, and I needed to do it somewhere they'd never look for me. My neighbor Bill Thompson had been texting me updates. 20 minutes after spotting Jake entering my house, he sent a series of photos that made my stomach turn. Jake and Sarah were loading my safe into their BMW. Not the decoy safe I kept in the bedroom closet with a few thousand in cash, but the real one from my study. The one behind the false panel that only family knew about. That safe didn't contain money. It held something far more valuable: my will, property deeds, power of attorney documents, and Helen's jewelry collection that was meant for Sarah on her 40th birthday. They weren't stealing money. They were stealing my ability to control my own assets. My phone rang. Marcus Stone, my attorney for the past 30 years, sounded unusually tense. Brandt, I just received a disturbing call from your daughter. She's claiming you had some sort of mental breakdown this morning, that you attacked her unprovoked. She says you threw scalding coffee at her and threatened Jake. I almost laughed at the audacity. Marcus, she threw coffee at me. I'm sitting here with second-degree burns on my face. I figured as much. Here's the concerning part: she's already filed for an emergency conservatorship hearing. Monday morning, same day as this supposed debt deadline. Judge Patricia Thornton's court. Patricia's court. A small advantage. Patricia and I had tried cases together back in the day. She was sharp, fair, and had an excellent radar for deception. There's more, Marcus continued. Sarah claimed you've been showing signs of dementia for months. She has 3 witnesses ready to testify about your deteriorating mental state. The planning involved in this scheme was staggering. While I processed this information, Diana Walsh called on my other phone. Brandt, you need to see this. I'm sending you photos now. The images showed Jake meeting with a man I recognized from my prosecutorial days, Vincent "Vinny" Torino, a loan shark who operated out of the Riverside Casino. The FBI had been trying to nail him for years, but witnesses had a habit of developing amnesia, or disappearing entirely. I got close enough to catch some audio, Diana said. The $700,000 isn't a bank loan, Brandt. It's gambling debt. Jake owes Torino's organization, and from what I heard, they're not the patient type. Another photo showed Jake gesturing animatedly, while Torino sat stone-faced. The last image made my blood freeze. Jake pointing at what was clearly a photo of my house on his phone. There's audio for this part, Diana said. Sending it now. Jake's voice came through clear. The old man will pay by Monday. If not, we get the house through the conservatorship. Either way, you get your money. Sarah says he's worth at least $3 million, maybe more. Torino's gravelly response was equally clear. He better pay. I don't care if he's your wife's father or the Pope himself. Monday we collect. $3 million, I almost laughed. My entire net worth, including the house, was maybe $800,000. Comfortable for retirement, but hardly the fortune Sarah had apparently promised these criminals. I made a decision in that moment. Playing defense would get me killed or institutionalized. It was time to go on the offensive, but not in any way they'd expect. Diana, I need everything you can find on Jake Morrison, also known as Jake Patterson. Check for aliases, previous marriages, any elderly relatives who died unexpectedly. And I need it fast. On it. What about surveillance? Maintain it, but carefully. These aren't amateurs we're dealing with. My next call was to Robert Chen, a forensic accountant who'd helped me untangle dozens of financial crimes during my career. Robert owed me nothing, but he took my call immediately. Brent, to what do I owe the pleasure? I need you to look into my daughter's finances, Rob. Specifically any access she might have had to her mother's trust fund. Helen had insisted on setting up a charitable trust before she died, wanting to help underprivileged kids get the education she never had. Sarah was listed as a trustee, but couldn't access the principal without my co-signature. Give me 2 hours, Robert said. If there's anything fishy, I'll find it. My final call of the morning was to someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Judge Helen Carter's clerk, Nancy Stevenson, who'd been my assistant during my last 5 years as a prosecutor. Mr. Williams, what a lovely surprise. Nancy, I need a favor. Could you quietly check if there have been any sealed conservatorship filings in other jurisdictions, specifically involving elderly parents and adult children? Cross-reference with the name Jake Morrison or Patterson. That's an unusual request. Is everything all right? No, but it will be. I just need information, and I need it to stay between us for now. Give me an hour. I still have friends in records departments across 3 states. As I sat in the diner booth planning my counterattack, I thought about Sun Tzu's ancient wisdom. All warfare is based on deception. Sarah and Jake thought they were dealing with a grief-stricken old man who'd grown soft in retirement. They were about to learn that prosecutors never truly retire. We just find different courtrooms. My phone buzzed. Bill Thompson again. They're back at your house with a locksmith, changing your locks. Let them, I thought. The house was just property. What I was building now was a trap, and every move they made was drawing them deeper into it. Diana's next message changed everything. Found something huge. Jake has 3 ex-wives. All had wealthy fathers. 2 of those fathers died within a year of the marriage. Sending details now. The information she sent made my prosecutor instincts scream. Harold Brennan, age 72, died of a heart attack, just 48 hours after signing over power of attorney to Jake. George Caldwell, 68, fell downstairs a week after Jake and his second wife were named beneficiaries of his estate. Both deaths were ruled accidental. I made one more call, this one to Detective Carl Rodriguez, who'd worked the organized crime unit for 20 years. Carl, it's Brandt Williams. I need to talk to you about Vincent Torino, and I might have something that helps both of us. I'm listening. How would you like to take down Torino and solve at least one cold case, maybe more? You have my full attention. As I laid out what I knew, I could hear Carl's excitement building. A prosecutor's daughter working with her husband to defraud elderly parents, connected to a known crime figure. This was the kind of case that made careers. "I'll need evidence," Carl said. "You'll have it. But I need to play this carefully. My daughter's already trying to have me declared incompetent." Classic elder abuse pattern. Play along, Brandt. Let them think they're winning. We'll be ready when you are. I left the diner with a plan forming. They wanted to paint me as a declining old man. I'd give them exactly what they expected to see. But while they celebrated their apparent victory, I'd be building a case that would destroy their entire scheme. The hunter was about to become the hunted, and they'd never see it coming until the trap snapped shut. Sunday morning arrived with deceptive calm. I'd spent the night at the Riverside Motor Lodge, a modest place where I'd registered under the name William Bradley, paying cash. The desk clerk, a bored college student, hadn't even looked up from his textbook. Perfect. My phone showed 17 missed calls from Sarah and 5 from Michael, my son in Colorado. I ignored Sarah's, but listened to Michael's voicemail. "Dad, what's going on? Sarah's posting all over social media about you having some kind of breakdown. She says you attacked her. This doesn't sound like you at all. Please call me." I opened Facebook with growing dread. Sarah had posted a lengthy message on her wall, visible to all 800 of her friends. It breaks my heart to share this, but I need support from my community. My father, who I've loved and cared for since Mom died, violently attacked me yesterday. He threw hot coffee in my face when I tried to discuss family finances. I'm scared he's developing dementia like Grandpa did. Please pray for us as we navigate getting him the help he needs. The comments were pouring in. Sympathy shock offers of support. Several people shared their own stories of parents with dementia. Sarah responded to each, with practiced grace, painting herself as the devoted daughter facing an impossible situation. I screenshot everything, then called Michael. "Dad, thank God. What really happened?" I kept my voice calm, measured. "Your sister threw coffee at me when I refused to pay her husband's $700,000 gambling debt. I'm fine, just disappointed. Do me a favor, son. Look into your sister's spending habits lately. Check her Instagram, specifically posts about shopping and vacations." Gambling debt. "Dad, what are you talking about?" "Just look, Michael, and be careful what you say to her. I need you to trust me on this." "Of course I trust you. Dad, you sound like yourself, not like someone with dementia." "Thank you, son. That means more than you know. I'll explain everything soon, but for now, just observe." Diana Walsh called next, with information that made my skin crawl. "Brandt, I've been digging all night. Jake's pattern is even worse than we thought. 3 ex-wives, all with wealthy fathers. Harold Brennan died of a heart attack 2 days after signing over his estate. George Caldwell fell downstairs. But here's the kicker. There's a 3rd death we missed initially. Richard Tanner, father of Jake's first wife, died in a car accident 6 months into their marriage. Single car ran off the road. No skid marks. 3 deaths, 3 accidents," I said quietly. No prosecutor believes in that kind of coincidence. There's more. I tracked down Harold Brennan's daughter, Jennifer. She's been trying to prove Jake murdered her father for 3 years. Says she has evidence, but no one would listen. She's willing to talk to you. "Set it up quietly." Robert Chen called while I was processing Diana's information. "Brandt, you were right to be suspicious. Sarah's been draining her mother's charitable trust. Small amounts at first, but increasingly larger over the past 3 years. I've found roughly $300,000 in unauthorized withdrawals, all disguised as administrative expenses and foundation operations." My heart broke a little more. Helen had specifically wanted that money to help kids who couldn't afford college textbooks, kids like she'd been. Sarah had known this, had cried at her mother's bedside, promising to honor her wishes. All traceable. Every penny. She was clever, but not clever enough. The money went through 2 shell companies before landing in accounts connected to high-end shopping, luxury vacations, and Jake's failed business ventures. "Document everything. Official forensic report suitable for court. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your daughter owes us $2. Monday, we collect from whoever we can find. So Sarah had her own gambling debts. The shopping addiction I'd noticed but dismissed as retail therapy after her mother's death was apparently much worse. She'd found Jake not as a victim, but as a fellow predator, and together, they'd identified the perfect mark me. Nancy Stevenson called with the final piece of the puzzle. Mr. Williams, I found what you're looking for. 3 sealed conservatorship cases in other states, all involving Jake Morrison under various names. In each case, elderly parents were declared incompetent shortly before significant financial transfers. 2 of the cases were dismissed after the parents died. The third is still technically open in Nevada, but the parent, Walter Hutchinson, hasn't been seen in 2 years. He's missing. According to the file, he's in a private care facility that no one can seem to locate. His entire estate is now controlled by Jake and the daughter. 4 potential murders. My prosecutor's mind was already building the case. Pattern evidence, financial motive, consistent methodology. This wasn't just fraud. This was serial murder for profit. Jennifer Brennan agreed to meet me at a truck stop 30 miles outside the city. She was a small woman in her 40s with tired eyes and a steel spine. "Thank you for believing me," she said as soon as she sat down. 3 years I've been telling people Jake killed my father, and everyone thinks I'm the crazy one. Tell me everything. Dad was healthy as a horse. Ran 3 miles every morning, perfect checkups. Then he met Jake's third wife, Melissa, at his golf club. Within 6 months, they were married, and Jake was suddenly Dad's best friend. Always offering to help with finances, constantly talking about how elderly people need to protect their assets. She pulled out a tablet. I recorded this at a family dinner a week before Dad died. I was worried about how pushy Jake was being about Dad's will. The audio was clear. Jake's voice talking to someone on the phone while he thought he was alone on the patio. The old man signing everything over Thursday. After that, we just need the package you promised. Same stuff as last time, good. Make sure it's undetectable. Package? I asked, though I suspected I knew. I think poison. Something that mimics a heart attack. I gave this to the police, but Jake's wife alibied him, said he was talking about investment packages. Without a body to autopsy, Dad was cremated per his wishes that Jake produced. They couldn't prove anything. Would you testify to this in court? In a heartbeat. But Mr. Williams, be careful. 2 other people who asked questions about Dad's death had accidents. One fell off a ladder, the other had brake failure. Both survived, but got the message. I gave her Carl Rodriguez's contact information. Detective Rodriguez is building a case. Your evidence could be the key to everything. As I drove back toward the city, my phone rang. Sarah. Daddy. Her voice was sweet, concerned. The same voice she'd used as a child when she wanted something. Daddy, I'm worried about you. Where are you? We just want to help. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just needed some space after yesterday. About yesterday. I'm so sorry. I don't know what came over me. The stress of Jake's situation just got to me. Can we talk? Maybe over lunch tomorrow. Of course. How about after the court hearing? There was a pause. You know about that? My attorney informed me. Sarah, if you're concerned about my mental state, I'm happy to have any evaluation the court deems necessary. Oh, Daddy, it's just a formality. Jake thinks. We think it's best to have legal protection in place. You know, in case something happens. Something like what happened to Harold Brennan. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. When she finally spoke, her voice had lost all warmth. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course not, sweetheart. I'll see you tomorrow in court. Daddy, wait. I ended the call. Let her wonder what I knew. Let her and Jake scramble, make mistakes. Panicked criminals always did. That evening, I met with Marcus Stone and Carl Rodriguez at Marcus's office. We spent 3 hours building our strategy. By the time we finished, we had a plan that would either save my life or destroy what was left of my family. "You sure you want to do this?" Marcus asked. "Once we start, there's no going back." I thought about Helen, about the trust she'd placed in our daughter, about the dreams she'd had for that charitable money. I thought about Harold Brennan and the others elderly men who'd died alone and afraid. They made their choice when they decided to prey on the vulnerable. Now, I'm making mine. Carl nodded grimly. "Tomorrow's hearing is just the opening move. You ready to play the long game?" "Detective, I've been playing the long game since the moment my daughter threw coffee in my face. Tomorrow, they think they're winning. Let them." As I returned to my hotel room, I found myself oddly at peace. Tomorrow would begin the final act of this tragedy. Sarah and Jake had written themselves as the villains in this story. Now, it was time for the plot twist they'd never see coming. Monday morning dawned gray and drizzling fitting weather for what was about to unfold. I arrived at the courthouse in a wheelchair I didn't need, wearing a slightly rumpled suit, and a confused expression I'd practiced in the mirror. My burns were visible, but healing adding to the effect of a vulnerable old man. Marcus Stone met me at the entrance playing his part perfectly. "Now, Mr. Williams, remember what we discussed. Just answer the question simply and don't get agitated." I nodded vaguely, letting my eyes wander as if I couldn't quite focus. Several people in the lobby stared, and I heard whispers. Good. Let them see what Sarah and Jake expected them to see. Courtroom 3B was packed. Sarah had apparently rallied her support network. I recognized several faces from her social media posts. Her book club friends, charity committee members, people who knew her as the devoted daughter caring for an aging parent. Jake sat beside her in an expensive suit. I'm sure my money had paid for looking every inch the concerned son-in-law. Sarah gasped when she saw me in the wheelchair rushing over with perfectly manufactured concern. "Daddy! Oh my goodness, why didn't you tell us you needed help? We could have—" "Who are you, dear?" I asked, blinking up at her with calculated confusion. "You look familiar." Her face cycled through several emotions before settling on tragic acceptance. "It's me, Daddy. Sarah, your daughter." "Oh, hello, Sarah," I turned to Jake. "And you are—" "Jake, your son-in-law." His voice held barely concealed satisfaction. Judge Patricia Thornton entered, and I had to suppress a smile. Patricia had one of the best poker faces in the legal profession, but I'd learned her tells over decades of practice. The slight narrowing of her eyes when she saw me in the wheelchair, the way her fingers tapped once on her bench. She was already skeptical. Thomas Crenshaw. Sarah's attorney stood with practiced authority. I knew him by reputation, aggressive, theatrical, and utterly ruthless when it came to conservatorship cases. He'd made a fortune, convincing courts that healthy elderly people needed protection. "Your Honor." Crenshaw began, "We're here today because of an urgent situation regarding Mr. Brandt Williams' mental capacity and the immediate danger he poses to himself and others." He painted a masterful picture, the confused elderly man who'd violently attacked his caring daughter, who'd been showing signs of dementia for months, who could no longer manage his considerable assets. 3 of Sarah's friends testified about my recent confusion at social gatherings episodes I knew had never happened. "Mrs. Patterson." Crenshaw addressed Sarah with syrupy sympathy. "Can you tell the court about Saturday's incident?" Sarah's performance was Oscar-worthy. Her voice trembled as she described a completely fictional version of events where I'd exploded in paranoid rage, throwing coffee at her, when she'd simply asked about helping with my finances. "He kept saying we were trying to steal from him." She dabbed at her eyes. "My father would never have said such things before. This isn't him. This is the disease talking." "And the debt your husband mentioned," Judge Thornton interjected, earning a sharp look from Crenshaw. "Oh, that was just—" Jake had suggested maybe Daddy could help with a business investment. When Daddy got confused, he somehow transformed it into this wild story about gambling debts and loan sharks. It's classic paranoid delusion. Jake testified, next spinning tales of my supposed decline with enough medical terminology to sound credible. He'd clearly done his homework describing symptoms that matched mid-stage dementia perfectly. Just as Judge Thornton seemed to be buying their narrative, Marcus stood. Your Honor, the defense would like to present some additional context. Proceed. We have security footage from First National Bank from Saturday morning. Marcus produced his laptop. This footage shows Ms. Patterson attempting to access her father's accounts at 9:47 a.m., approximately 15 minutes before the alleged coffee incident. The timestamp was damning. Sarah's story had the confrontation happening at 9:30. That must be wrong, Sarah stammered. The times are mixed up. The bank's security chief will testify that this footage is accurate to the second, Marcus continued smoothly. Furthermore, this wasn't the first attempt. There were 2 previous unauthorized attempts to access Mr. Williams's accounts from the same IP address. Crenshaw objected vigorously, but Judge Thornton allowed the evidence. The atmosphere in the courtroom shifted palpably. We also have this. Marcus produced the loan document I'd been given. A gambling debt in Mr. Jake Patterson's name for $700,000, owed to known organized crime figure Vincent Torino. Objection. Crenshaw was on his feet. That's prejudicial and irrelevant. It's highly relevant. Marcus countered, when the alleged mental incompetence conveniently coincides with the exact date this debt comes due. Jake's face had gone pale. He whispered urgently to Sarah, who shook her head violently. Your Honor, Marcus continued, we'd like to present evidence that Mr. Patterson has been involved in similar conservatorship proceedings in 3 other states. That's a lie. Jake burst out, then caught himself. I mean, that's completely false. Judge Thornton's eyes narrowed. Mr. Patterson, you'll have your chance to respond. Mr. Stone, continue. Marcus presented Nancy's findings methodically. 3 cases, 3 elderly parents, suspicious financial transfers in each. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Furthermore, Marcus said, we have evidence that Ms. Patterson has been systematically draining her late mother's charitable trust, approximately $300,000 over 3 years. Sarah's support network began exchanging uncomfortable glances. Several people quietly left the courtroom. Your Honor. Crenshaw tried to regain control. Even if these allegations have merit, they don't change the fact that Mr. Williams is showing clear signs of diminished capacity. The wheelchair alone. About that, I said clearly, standing up from the wheelchair with ease. I apologize for the deception, Your Honor, but I needed everyone to see how easy it is to manipulate perceptions. The courtroom erupted. Sarah's face went from shock to rage to fear in rapid succession. Jake half rose from his seat as if to run, then thought better of it. Judge Thornton gavelled for order. Mr. Williams, are you saying you've been competent this entire time? Completely, Your Honor. I'm a retired federal prosecutor with 30 years of experience. When my daughter and her husband attempted to extort $700,000 from me through threats involving organized crime, I did what I've always done. I built a case. This is insane, Sarah shrieked. He's having an episode right now. Can't you see he's delusional? Ms. Patterson, Judge Thornton's voice was ice. I'll remind you that outbursts won't help your case. Mr. Stone, do you have additional evidence? We do, Your Honor. Detective Carl Rodriguez has been investigating connections between Mr. Patterson and Vincent Torino. The detective is prepared to testify about an ongoing criminal investigation. The door opened, and Carl entered in full uniform, followed by 2 other officers. Jake's attempt at a casual expression failed miserably. Your Honor, Carl announced, we have a warrant for Mr. Patterson's arrest on charges of fraud conspiracy and suspected murder in the death of Harold Brennan. The courtroom exploded again. Jake jumped up, but the officers were ready. As they cuffed him, he screamed at Sarah. You said he was an easy mark. You said he was getting senile. Sarah's lawyer tried desperately to maintain control. Your Honor, my client had no knowledge. Save it, counselor. Judge Thornton cut him off. I've heard enough. The petition for conservatorship is denied. Furthermore, I'm referring Ms. Patterson to the district attorney for investigation of fraud, elder abuse, and theft. As court officers moved toward Sarah, she turned to me with pure hatred in her eyes. You destroyed our family. Mom would be disgusted by what you've done. Your mother, I said quietly, but clearly, wanted her money to help underprivileged kids get an education. You stole it for shopping sprees and vacations. You tell me who she'd be disgusted by. As they led her away, I heard her last words. I'm your daughter. How could you do this to your own daughter? I didn't answer. The daughter I'd raised, the one who'd climbed into my lap for bedtime stories, had been gone for a long time. This stranger wearing her face was just someone who'd tried to have me declared incompetent, or worse. Judge Thornton cleared the courtroom of spectators before addressing me privately. Brandt, that was quite a performance. But are you okay? This couldn't have been easy. It was necessary, Patricia. How many other elderly people weren't as lucky as me? How many didn't have the knowledge or resources to fight back? She nodded grimly. Too many. For what it's worth, I never believed a word of it. You're the sharpest legal mind I know. Dementia. She snorted. Please. As I left the courthouse, Marcus at my side, I felt the weight of what had just happened. My daughter was going to prison. My family was shattered. But Harold Brennan and the others would get justice. And no more elderly parents would fall victim to Jake and Sarah's scheme. You did the right thing, Marcus said quietly. I know. That doesn't make it easier. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. Dad, I'm at the airport. Landing in an hour. Stay strong. You did what you had to do. At least I hadn't lost both my children. That was something to hold on to as I prepared for what came next. The courthouse drama was only the beginning. As I sat in a secure room at the police station, Detective Rodriguez laid out the next phase of our plan. Jake's being processed, but he's not talking. Sarah's lawyer got her released on bail. She put up her house. But here's the thing, Vincent Torino doesn't care about their legal troubles. He wants his money, and our sources say he's getting impatient. What do you need from me? We've been trying to nail Torino for years. If we can get him on tape discussing the Brennan murder, or threatening you, we can finally put him away. But it's dangerous, Brandt. I won't lie to you. I spent 30 years putting criminals away. I'm not stopping now. Carl smiled grimly. That's what I hoped you'd say. Here's what we're thinking. The plan was elegantly simple. I'd contact Jake and custody offer to pay the debt to protect Sarah, but insist on meeting at my house to get money from a hidden safe. Jake would jump at the chance, and Torino would certainly accompany him to ensure payment. We'll have the place wired 6 ways from Sunday, Carl assured me. Full FBI tactical team standing by. The moment we get what we need, we move in. That evening, I made the call to Jake's lawyer. As expected, Jake eagerly agreed to the meeting. His lawyer tried to object, but Jake overruled him. Desperation makes people stupid. The meeting was set for 8 p.m. the next night. I spent the intervening time working with the FBI tech team, learning where the cameras and microphones would be hidden, understanding the signals, preparing for contingencies. Michael arrived that evening, and seeing my son's face almost broke my composure. He hugged me tight, neither of us speaking for a long moment. I looked at her Instagram like you asked, he finally said. Dad, the spending? It's insane. $50,000 shopping sprees, trips to Monaco, designer everything. How did I not see it? Because you loved your sister. We both did. Love makes us blind sometimes. I found something else. Comments on her posts from 3 years ago, right after Mom died. Jake was commenting on everything, but get this. They were already talking like they'd known each other for years. Dad, I think she knew Jake before Mom got sick. My blood ran cold. Are you saying? I don't know. Maybe I'm paranoid now. But the timeline is weird. Jake shows up in her life, right when Mom's cancer was diagnosed, and suddenly Sarah's pushing for power of attorney, talking about estate planning. I filed that away, one horror at a time. The next evening, I prepared my house for what might be its final scene as my home. If things went wrong, I might not walk out alive. I placed Helen's picture in my shirt pocket, wanting her close for strength. At 7:45, Carl's voice came through the earpiece they'd given me. "Williams, you good?" "Ready as I'll ever be." "Jake just left county in his lawyer's custody. Our tale says they're heading your way. And Brandt Torino's with them. 2 of his men as well. The more the merrier. Better witnesses. Just stick to the script. Get them talking. We need specifics about Brennan, about their methods. The moment you feel unsafe, say the word retirement, and we come in hot." At exactly 8 p.m., my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Jake flanked by Vincent Torino and 2 men who looked like they bench-pressed small cars for fun. Jake's lawyer was nowhere to be seen. "Mr. Williams." Torino's voice was like gravel over broken glass. "I hear you're ready to be reasonable. Please come in. Would anyone like coffee?" I couldn't help the small jab. Jake actually flinched. Let's just get this done." I led them to my study, playing the role of defeated old man. "The safe is behind the Monet reproduction. Sarah gave it to me for my 60th birthday." True, and the irony wasn't lost on anyone. 700,000, Torino stated. Cash. Of course. Though I am curious, Mr. Torino. How does a businessman like yourself end up in business with my son-in-law? Torino smiled, and it was like watching a shark bare its teeth. Jake's been a good customer for years. Knows how to spot opportunities. Like that Brennan deal. Smooth as silk until the daughter got nosy. Dad always said the key was the medication. Jake said eagerly, trying to impress Torino. Switch their heart pills for something that mimics a cardiac event. By the time anyone thinks to check, they're cremated and buried. I forced myself to remain calm as I fumbled with the safe combination, deliberately taking my time. Clever. How many times have you done this? This one makes 4, Jake boasted. Would have been 5, but Sarah jumped the gun with you. Said we should have waited, made you trust me more first. Jake, Torino warned, but Jake was on a roll. The trick is finding the right marks. Lonely old men with money and daughters who resent them. Sarah was perfect, already angry about her mother's money going to charity instead of her. She practically begged me to help her get what she deserved. My hands trembled as I opened the safe, but not from fear, from rage. Speaking of what people deserve, I said, turning around, I have something for you. Instead of money, I pulled out a photograph of Harold Brennan with his daughter Jennifer. Harold was 72, had 4 grandchildren, volunteered at a literacy center teaching adults to read. Jake's face went white. What is this? George Caldwell. I continued pulling out another photo. 68, spent his retirement building houses for Habitat for Humanity. What the hell? Torino started. Richard Tanner, Walter Hutchinson. More photos. All fathers, all loved, all murdered for money. You're wearing a wire, Torino stated, his hand moving toward his jacket. Retirement, I shouted. The front door exploded inward. FBI agents poured in from every direction, weapons drawn. Torino's hand had just closed on his gun when an agent's voice boomed, Don't move, FBI hands where we can see them. Chaos erupted. One of Torino's men tried to run and was immediately tackled. The other dropped to his knees, hands up. Torino himself stood frozen, calculating odds that weren't in his favor. Jake, in a moment of pure stupidity, grabbed a letter opener from my desk and lunged at me. You ruined everything. I sidestepped, my old prosecutor reflexes still intact, and Jake crashed into Bill Thompson, who'd apparently been hiding behind the door in full tactical gear. Oops, Bill said cheerfully as he zip-tied Jake's hands. Guess I was trimming the hedges in the wrong place. As the FBI led them out, Torino locked eyes with me. You're a dead man, Williams. No, I replied calmly. I'm a federal witness. You're a dead man walking on death row. Jake's last words as they dragged him away were perhaps the most telling. Sarah knew everything. She picked you out for me. She said you were getting too old to manage your money anyway. She came to the casino, looking for someone like me. After they were gone, Carl clapped me on the back. Outstanding work. We got everything. Confessions to multiple murders. Torino, threatening a federal witness, conspiracy, fraud, the whole package. What happens now? Now we build an airtight case. With what we just recorded, Jake's looking at multiple life sentences. Torino, too. As for Sarah, he shrugged. Depends on how much she wants to cooperate. Michael appeared in the doorway, having watched everything from the command post the FBI had set up next door. His face was pale, but determined. Dad, you okay? Getting there. Jake said Sarah came looking for him. That she picked you out as a target. Dad, what if she was planning this even before Mom died? It was a question that would haunt me, but one I couldn't answer yet. For now, it was enough that the immediate danger was over, that justice was being served, and that no more fathers would die at Jake's hands. The FBI spent 3 more hours processing my house as a crime scene. As I watched them work, I held Helen's picture and whispered, I protected our family even from itself. I hope you understand. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wailed. The sound of justice finally catching up with those who thought they could prey on the vulnerable with impunity. The next morning, news of the arrests exploded across local media. Elaborate elder fraud scheme exposed, screamed the headlines. Multiple murders suspected in inheritance scam. My name was kept out of it, for now identified only as a retired federal prosecutor who helped expose the scheme. I was having breakfast with Michael when Marcus Stone called. Sarah wants to see you. Her lawyer says she's ready to make a deal. I don't think that's wise, Michael said immediately. Dad, you don't owe her anything. But I needed to look her in the eye one more time. Needed to understand how my little girl had become this stranger. The federal detention center was a place I'd sent many criminals to over my career. Walking in as a visitor felt surreal. Sarah sat in the interview room, orange jumpsuit replacing her designer clothes, no makeup, to hide the harsh reality of what she'd become. Daddy, she started, and I held up my hand. Don't, just tell me why. Her facade cracked slightly. You want to know why? Because I watched you give everything away. Mom's money to charity, your time to strangers, your attention to your precious cases. And what did I get? A pat on the head, and a reminder to be grateful. You got a college education paid in full, a car for graduation, support when… Crumbs. She slammed her hand on the table. Do you know what Jessica Morrison's father gave her $1 million for her wedding? And Stephanie Chen. Her dad bought her a house, a real house, not some starter home, but a mansion. And their fathers weren't even prosecutors, just salesmen and middle managers who knew how to take care of their families. So you decided to steal what you couldn't earn. Her laugh was bitter. I married that loser because you and Mom insisted I needed to stand on my own 2 feet. Then, when he left me with nothing, what did you say? This is a learning experience, sweetheart. Well, I learned all right. You learned to prey on innocent people, to murder. I never murdered anyone. She leaned forward, desperate. That was all Jake. I introduced him to the right people, made connections. I didn't know he would. You didn't know really after the first death, the second, the third. She looked away. They were old. They would have died anyway. The callousness took my breath away. This wasn't my daughter. This was a monster wearing her face. Your mother would be heartbroken, I said quietly. That broke her. Don't you talk about Mom. She left everything to strangers. That money should have been mine. I was her daughter. She left it to help kids who couldn't afford education. Kids like she had been. And what about helping her own kid? What about making sure I didn't have to struggle? You never struggled a day in your life, Sarah. That was the problem. Her lawyer touched her arm, warning her to stop talking. But the dam had broken. I found Jake at the casino. I was trying to pay off credit cards you didn't know about. He was charming, successful looking. When he told me about his business, about how he helped families access money that was rightfully theirs, it made sense. These old people sitting on fortunes while their children suffered. Harold Brennan's daughter, Jennifer, didn't seem to be suffering. She just wanted her father alive. That wasn't supposed to happen. Jake promised it would be peaceful, that they wouldn't feel anything. So you did know about the murders? Her lawyer stood. This interview is over. As I left, Sarah called out one last time. Daddy, I know where Jake keeps records. Everything. All his contacts, other people doing the same thing. I'll trade it all for a deal. I turned back. Tell the FBI. It's out of my hands now. Outside, Michael waited in the car. How bad? Worse than we imagined. She wasn't a victim who got pulled in. She was the recruiter. That afternoon, Detective Rodriguez called with updates. Sarah's turning state's evidence. The information she's providing. Brandt, this is nationwide. There's a whole network of people running this scam. We're looking at potentially dozens of victims across 15 states. All elderly parents. Everyone. The FBI is setting up a task force. They want you to consult, given your experience. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Yes. The next weeks were a whirlwind of investigations. Jennifer Brennan became a fierce advocate, working with other victims' families to demand justice. Her testimony, combined with Jake's recorded confession, led to Harold's body being exhumed. The autopsy found traces of potassium chloride, the same drug used in lethal injections. Michael threw himself into helping, using his tech skills to trace financial patterns. We discovered Sarah and Jake had offshore accounts totaling nearly $2 million, all stolen from victims over the years. One evening, as we sorted through evidence, Michael made a discovery that chilled us both. Dad, look at this. Sarah's journal from 3 years ago, recovered from her cloud storage. The entry was dated 2 weeks before Helen's death. Mom's getting worse. The doctors say maybe 6 months. I can't wait that long. Jake says there are ways to speed things up without anyone knowing. But could I? She's my mother. But she's also sitting on money that could change my life. Jake says it's not really murder if someone's already dying. We're just helping nature along. I had to leave the room. Michael found me on the back porch, staring at Helen's rose garden. We'll never know, he said quietly. The cancer was real. She was dying. But did they make it faster? Did they take even a day from her? We'd never have answers to that question. Helen had been cremated, her ashes scattered at her favorite beach. But the doubt would live with me forever. The trials began 6 months later. Jake was convicted on 4 counts of murder, plus fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering. Life without parole, 4 times over. Torino got death row for multiple murders related to his loan sharking operation. His organization crumbled as members fled or turned informant. Sarah pled guilty to fraud, conspiracy, and accessory after the fact. 25 years with possibility of parole in 15, if she continued cooperating. The day of her sentencing, she looked at me across the courtroom and mouthed, "I'm sorry." I didn't respond. Some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt. The victims' families formed a support group. I attended every meeting, sharing my story, helping others recognize the signs. We successfully lobbied for new legislation protecting elderly Americans from financial exploitation by family members. 1 year later, at Harold Brennan's memorial, Jennifer had waited to hold it until after justice was served. She pulled me aside. "Thank you," she said simply. "Not just for Dad, but for all of them. You gave us closure." "I gave us justice," I corrected. Closure is something we have to find for ourselves. As I stood at the podium to speak about the man I'd never met, but had come to know through his daughter's love, I thought about the strange paths life takes. My daughter had tried to destroy me. Instead, she'd given me a new purpose, a new family of survivors and advocates. Harold Brennan was a father, I began. That should have been enough to keep him safe. It wasn't. But his death wasn't meaningless. Because of Jennifer's persistence and courage, Harold saved lives. Other fathers, other mothers who won't fall victim to those who see age as weakness and love as a weapon. Harold's legacy isn't in how he died, but in how his story will protect others. The applause was subdued but heartfelt. In the audience, I saw Michael wiping his eyes. My son, my real family who'd stood by me when standing was hard. After the service, as people shared stories and memories, my phone buzzed. A message from the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Sarah had requested to be placed in a program teaching financial literacy to at-risk youth. She wanted to warn them about the dangers of greed and easy money. It wasn't redemption. It might not even be genuine. But it was a start. I deleted the message and turned back to the gathering of survivors. My real work, my real family was here with them. 6 months after the trials ended, I stood in my garden on a crisp Sunday morning, tending to Helen's roses. They'd bloomed magnificently this year, as if she were reminding me that beauty could still grow from pain. The house felt different now, lighter somehow, freed from the shadow of deception that had darkened its walls. Michael and his family had moved to a house just 3 blocks away. My grandchildren Emma and James were playing in the yard, while their parents prepared Sunday dinner. It had become our new tradition, these weekly gatherings that filled the house with laughter again. Grandpa Brandt. 7-year-old Emma ran over with a handful of dandelions. "These are for you." "They're beautiful, sweetheart. Should we put them in water?" "Yes, Daddy says dandelions are weeds, but I think they're sunshine flowers." I thought about perspectives, about how 2 people could look at the same thing and see something entirely different. Sarah had looked at my modest retirement and seen deprivation. Emma looked at weeds and saw sunshine. The doorbell rang, and I found Bill Thompson on my porch with a casserole dish. "Martha insisted," he said with a grin. "Said you bachelors can't be trusted to feed yourselves properly." "Tell Martha she's an angel. Come in for coffee." We sat on the back deck, watching the children play. Bill had been more than a neighbor through everything. He'd been a guardian angel when I needed one most. "Any word from Sarah?" he asked carefully. "She writes sometimes. I don't open the letters anymore." "That's probably wise." "Michael reads them. Says she's teaching classes now, warning young women about predatory men and get-rich-quick schemes. Says she's finding faith." I shrugged. Maybe it's genuine. Maybe it's another manipulation. I've made my peace with not knowing. And Jake died 2 months ago. Prison fight. Apparently even murderers don't like people who prey on the elderly. We sat in comfortable silence, 2 old men who'd seen too much, but somehow found peace anyway. That afternoon, Detective Rodriguez stopped by with news. The task force has identified and prevented 14 similar schemes nationwide. Your testimony and consultation have saved literally dozens of lives, Brandt. Just doing what needed to be done. No, you did more than that. You turned personal tragedy into purpose. The Brandt Protocol, that's what they're calling the identification system you helped develop, is being implemented nationwide. After he left, I sat in my study looking at photographs. Helen, on our wedding day. Sarah and Michael as children, gap-toothed and grinning. The family we'd once been. The family that existed now only in memories and fractured pieces. My phone rang. Jennifer Brennan's name appeared on the screen. "Brandt, I have news. The foundation we discussed, it's approved. The Harold Brennan Center for Elder Protection will open next month. We want you to speak at the dedication." I'd be honored. There's more. An anonymous donor contributed $5 million. They insisted it be named the Helen and Harold Fund. I smiled, suspecting Michael's hand in this. He'd done well in tech, but more importantly, he understood the power of honoring those we'd lost. That evening, as 3 generations gathered around my dinner table, I thought about the price of justice. It had cost me a daughter, but given me a purpose. It had broken my family, but built a new one from survivors and advocates. It had nearly killed me, but ultimately made me stronger. "Grandpa?" James asked suddenly. Why don't we ever see Aunt Sarah? The table went quiet. Michael started to intervene, but I held up my hand. Sometimes, I said carefully, people we love make choices that hurt others. When that happens, we have to love them from far away to keep ourselves and others safe. Is she sorry? I believe she is, but being sorry doesn't always fix what's broken. That's sad. Yes, it is. But you know what's not sad. Having all of you here. Having neighbors who care. Having the chance to help other families stay safe. Sometimes we lose things, but we gain others. Emma piped up, like when my goldfish died, but then we got Murphy. Murphy, their enthusiastic golden retriever, barked agreement from under the table. Exactly like that, I laughed. Later, as Michael helped me clean up, he said quietly, Dad, I've been thinking about Mom a lot lately. About Sarah's journal entry. Don't. We'll never know, and torturing ourselves won't change anything. I know. But I wanted to say, even if Sarah did something, even if she hastened things, Mom knew she was loved. Her last words were about how proud she was of her family. Sarah couldn't take that away. I hugged my son tightly. Thank you. I needed to hear that. As the evening wound down, I walked my family to the door. The children sleepy, the adults content. This was wealth. This was success. This was what Sarah had never understood. That money was just paper, but family, real family, was everything. Same time next week, Michael asked. Wouldn't miss it for the world. After they left, I returned to the garden. The roses glowed in the moonlight, and I could almost feel Helen beside me. We did it, honey, I whispered. We survived. Not the way we planned, but we survived. The wind rustled through the roses, carrying the scent of new blooms. Life went on. Love endured. Justice had been served. But more importantly, I'd learned that the greatest revenge against those who try to destroy us is to rebuild stronger love, deeper, and use our pain to protect others. 6 years have passed since that Saturday morning, when Sarah handed me an envelope that changed everything. The Brandt Protocol has saved 847 elderly Americans from similar schemes. The Helen and Harold Fund has educated thousands about elder fraud. Sarah serves her time and teaches her classes, and maybe, just maybe, she prevents another family's destruction. I'm 76 now. My health is good, my mind sharp, my heart full. I have a son who stood by me, grandchildren who light up my world, and a purpose that honors Helen's memory. That's more than enough. To anyone reading this who's facing betrayal by those you love, know this. You're stronger than you think. Justice isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about prevention. And family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who stand by you when standing is hard. Love wisely, trust carefully, but don't let fear stop you from living fully. That's the real victory. Not just surviving the storm, but learning to dance in the rain that follows. And always, always remember, when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. It might just save your life. As I close this chapter of my story, sitting in the garden, Helen loved, surrounded by the life we built together. I'm at peace. Sarah tried to bury me. She didn't know I was a seed. And from that burial, a garden of justice grew. Dear friends who've followed this journey, I hope my story resonates with you. Have you ever faced betrayal from someone you trusted? How did you find the strength to seek justice while maintaining your humanity? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences might help someone else facing similar challenges. If this story moved you, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to hear more stories of triumph over betrayal. Share this with anyone who might need to hear that they're not alone in facing family deception. Thank you for allowing me to share my truth with you. Remember, you are stronger than those who would prey on your kindness and justice, though sometimes slow is always worth pursuing. Until next time, stay strong, stay wise, And most importantly, stay true to yourself. Your integrity is your greatest weapon against those who would do you harm. With gratitude and hope for your own journey, Brandt Williams.